Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So look, in this video, I really wanted to break down the number one thing that the New York Jets cannot do. They must avoid it, okay? If this team wants to have success moving forward, it's imperative that they do not do this, okay? It's forcing a quarterback onto a new coach. Forcing a quarterback onto a new coach, okay? Whether you're talking about Sam Darnold, whether you're talking about, Justin Fields, a Zach Wilson, possibly a Trey Lance, a veteran guy, whatever the case may be, Chris Johnson and Joe Douglas, because there have been reports that Joe Douglas will be manning the search for the head coach position. Those two guys specifically cannot conduct these head coaching interviews with the mindset of, we love Sam Darnold so much and he's going to be the future moving forward, deal with it. And on the flip side, we can't stand Darnold. He's a turnover machine. He can't make good decisions. We're drafting a quarterback at 2. You have to be on board with that. That would be an absolute disaster. That screams incompetent franchise. Look what just happened. Look what just happened with the Washington football team and quarterback Dwayne Haskins. He was a first-round pick back in 2019. It wasn't like he was the 32nd pick or the 30th pick. No, middle of the first round here. Washington's ownership wanted Dwayne Haskins bad. Okay, yeah, he had a big arm, has a lot of potential. Guy can move around a little bit, really good deep ball accuracy. But the coaching staff, who was Jay Gruden at the time, did not want him. They did not want to go with the quarterback with that first pick. In I think it was spot 15. They didn't want him. Ownership overrided the decision. They picked Dwayne Haskins. I remember reading rumors on draft night that Jay Gruden was unhappy with the pick and this and that. It was just a complete disaster. Fast forward 1 year, Jay Gruden's gone. Ron Rivera's in the building. He's not working there either, and he's released. The Jets cannot be in that position. So one would assume that Christopher Johnson has enough self-awareness to not only just understand the position that the Jets are in right now as a franchise. Obviously changes need to be made. There's a bunch of vacancies on this roster. They need to upgrade the personnel. You cannot force the quarterback position, the most important position on the football field at all times, upon a new head coach. You would like to think that as an NFL owner, he has that foresight to understand that that's not a successful plan of attack. It's not a responsible plan of attack as we transition from regular season to the offseason. So here's what makes me uneasy, nervous to a certain degree moving forward. Okay, you're taking a look at Christopher Johnson's tenure as acting owner of the New York Jets. He hasn't been at the helm. He hasn't been in charge doing this for a long time. Okay, it's not like he's been the acting owner for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. That's not the case. He's still brand new to this thing. All right, so clearly he wants to win. Obviously, he cares what the fans think of him. And from an optic perspective, he doesn't want to be the laughing stock of the NFL. He doesn't want to be, the owner that walks in the room, amongst everybody else, and he's the one that gets, scoffed at. Christopher Johnson wants to win these football games, okay? So my fear is that he falls in love with a certain guy. He pulls a Dan Snyder. He tries to override a decision, just like we saw with Matt Rule just a couple seasons ago. Matt Rule was far along in the interview process with the New York Jets. Okay, I feel as though Matt Rule wanted to come to New York. He wanted to become the next head coach of the New York Jets. And granted, I will throw this in there as well. Joe Douglas was not a part of this search. It was Mike McCagnon. So I do want to throw that in there as well. But Christopher Johnson was heading the charge nonetheless, okay? The main reason, the sole reason why Matt Rule is not the head coach of the New York Jets today is because Chris Johnson, Mike McCagnon, the Jets organization fell in love with Greg Williams. Not enough to make him the head coach, but enough to force a staff onto Matt Rule. And for Matt Rule, a guy, highly successful at Baylor, flipping that program around, really going to Baylor when nobody wanted the job, and making Baylor an extremely tough out every single Saturday in the Big 12, for him to leave that position and come to the NFL, and for him to not have control over the coaches that he's going to be working with, game planning with, practicing with, that's absolutely absurd. It's absurd. I don't blame Matt Rule for not going to the Jets in the least. I wouldn't want to do that either. And then the Jets shift their attention from Rule to Gase. He gets the job. They bring in Greg Williams as defensive coordinator. And I'm not going to dive too much into what happens after that because you guys know the story. You guys have been a part of this nightmare for the last 2 years, okay? It's been a very depressing and upsetting time, filled with anger, and rightfully so, okay? So, look, we have guys, we have owners in the league today. It's still relevant. They're overriding decisions in War Room on draft night, okay? Overriding what the coach has to say, overriding what the general manager has to say, and they're picking their guys just like Dwayne Haskins, Dan Snyder, that whole thing. And you can even go back to Dan Snyder with RG3, right? With the coaching staff, Shanahan and these guys wanting Kirk Cousins. They didn't want to trade up in the first place. They didn't want to pick RG3. They didn't want to deal with it. So we've seen this story before, okay? We've seen Johnson do this before. This is my take on the whole situation, okay? It doesn't matter what Chris Johnson feels or thinks about Sam Darnold. It does not matter if he's fallen in love with one of these draft prospects like a Zach Wilson, a Trey Lance, a Justin Fields, a Mac Jones, whoever it may be, Kyle Trask. It does not matter what Chris Johnson thinks. It does not matter what Chris Johnson wants. He needs to take a step back. Let the football people do their football business. The questions that need to be asked when we're interviewing these candidates for the head coaching position of the New York Jets should be, how do you feel about Sam Darnold? If he says, hey, he has a ton of potential, he's 23 years old, he's had a handful of good games, he has some mobility, I don't think we should give up on him. I think we can build the offense around him. I just need X, Y, and Z to work. Then that's what we do. If he walks in the building and says, Sam Darnold's absolutely horrible, I think he sucks, we need to draft a new guy at spot number 2, then that's what we do. We're not overriding any decisions. We're not trying to tell the coach how to do his job. We're not going to pick the most important position on the football field and say, you deal with it. We need to tailor the offense, tailor the defense, tailor the entire Jets team, the face of the New York Jets, to the head coach. That's what I feel like we should do. We're not in the business of forcing players, forcing coaching staffs onto a head coach because that's how you burn bridges. That's what makes you look horrible. I actually posted a video today or yesterday, depending on when I upload this video, about Joe Brady, right? Panthers offensive coordinator, currently working under Matt Rule. And this is something I should have mentioned in that video. I really wish I did. But look, if the Jets want to pick up the phone, say they want to interview Joe Brady, they pick up the phone, they call Carolina up and they say, hey, we want to get Brady in for an interview. We really like what he's done with LSU. We like what he's done, with the Carolina Panthers. They're interested. They want to bring him in for a head coaching opportunity, a head coaching interview. I feel like there's a chance Matt Rule looks at the situation and advises Brady, don't even bother with that team. Don't even bother going. My interview process with the New York Jets was so laughably bad. It was just so embarrassing that they forced a staff on me. I didn't feel comfortable with it, and they turned me away. I went back to Baylor. Just don't even waste your time. I would advise against it, okay? And I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, who do we see it with? We saw it with, who was it? Sean Payton, back when he was the quarterbacks coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Everything was aligning for Peyton to go to Oakland. That looked like it was going to be done. And then at the last minute, things fell through. It crumbled. Sean Payton backed out, remained with Dallas, and then he ended up getting his opportunity with the Saints because people advised him not to do it, right? They're like, don't go to Oakland. It might not be the best fit. Guys like Gruden, Parcells, they advised him against it. Okay, so that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of the Jets just making a mockery of the entire situation, still being the laughingstock of the NFL by doing these shenanigans in the interview process. So that's just my one bit of advice. When we're entering the interview process, please do not force a quarterback decision or a staff on these head coaching candidates. We cannot do that. It's not a recipe for long-term success. I don't want to see the Jets do that, okay? I don't know what I'll do if the interview process starts and these rumors start leaking of how the Jets are forcing Sam Darnold on a new head coach. They're saying, you know what, Sam Darnold's horrible. We're definitely drafting 1 at 2. You better be on board. That would be a nightmare. That would be an absolute nightmare. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. This is something that the Jets cannot afford to let happen. We cannot force a staff, a quarterback decision onto another head coach. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and go Jets.